Start? Okay. Hello again. It's Ray, and this is.
How again?
Well, what do we know on OVE TV? And we have two amazing people here. We have Adeola, who is a lawyer, and we have Belarus, who is a media personality.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
You're welcome.
What?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So today we'll be talking about rape culture.
Yes, we'll be talking about sexual repression and its relationship to rape culture. So let's start with sexual repression. What do you think about what is your idea of sexual repression?
Sexual repression, of course. I mean, it's sort of self-explanatory when you hear the word repressing. Sex as people should either know it or how they are supposed to practice it, or repressing the ideal notion of it. That's really how I see it.
Okay.
The actual thing it was designed to be and what people are painting it as, basically.
Okay. So, what do you think about it?
Okay, I think it is like she said, repressing the ideal. It's like covering the indent. It's just like an egg that you're putting the yolk. The shell is covering it. So I feel like it is like the sexual repression. It's like you're trying to make it seem like mute its voice or speaking out. So I think it is.
Okay. So there's a lot of people have the idea that Nigeria in particular, let's use Nigeria because like we're in Nigeria, right? That the Nigerian culture and even religion, right, is when it comes to sex or sexual relations is very repressive, and it doesn't like let people express themselves how they should, like sexually, or they don't even they're not able to talk about it or understand it or explore it anyhow they want because of certain expectations religious wise. So do you think it's religious, or do you think it's stemmed from cultural beliefs, or what do you think, which of them?
I think it is both cultural and religious. But I feel like some people come to understand certain aspects of sex when they are having conversations around marriage.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And, some of these conversations are had in religious circles, and so topics around adultery, for instance, comes up, topics around fornication comes up. And for some people, it is in understanding what sex should be or how they should practice sex, that some of these debates happen where they say, okay, well, as a Christian boy or girl, you are expected to have sex when you get married. So in religious settings, for instance, people get to understand how sex should be practiced, or how they should have sex within the context of marriage. So it is about making sure that you do not defile, the matrimonial bed.
Yeah.
It's understanding it in that context that makes people feel like, okay, well, I need to try as much as possible not to sow wild oats. I need to try as much as possible to keep myself until I get married, and then I can explore whatever it is I want to explore. So for many people who don't perhaps have the background of maybe parents who are willing to talk about this thing without necessarily looking at it from a religious perspective, it becomes a religious topic. And some others who maybe are more culturally, who are not as conservative as some others, they feel like, oh, well, this is something we can definitely explore socially. We can talk about it, anyway. They are able to understand it, from that perspective. And I think that's where people tend to differ a lot, because some people feel like, okay, this is something that you can do at any point in your life. Whereas some others are like, no, please, according to my faith, you have to wait until you're married and, all of that. So I feel like, and this is where society, helps, well, maybe doesn't necessarily help, but it kind of complicates it a bit more, because there will almost always be that dichotomy between culture and religion. So it's the two things at the same time anyway.
Okay, it's interesting that you brought up like parents, like and how they don't talk about it, because like I think that there's a lot to say about our own parents' influence on the repression. There's like a relationship between that, because parents our parents were taught that sex is a dirty thing unless it's something you do for, fertilization, for having kids,
Yeah,
for
reproduction.
yes,
Mhm.
and within marriage, by the way. So they're taught as a dirty thing, so it's difficult for them to have such conversations with their kids, and that's where sex education in Nigeria particularly is lacking.
Mhm.
Did you ever have that conversation? Like, did your parents ever have that conversation with you about sex? And how did the conversation go?
Uh, my mom always, okay, we are 6 girls in my household.
Okay.
So my mom made sure we know because she didn't want any teen pregnancy. But it was always very awkward whenever she brings up the topic that, okay, but at least I'm grateful that I didn't have to learn because sometimes in secondary school, for instance, I had some friends that would come and meet me and say, okay, what's the meaning of this? Don't let anybody know I came to tell you or ask you. Do you understand? Because they didn't know and they have nobody to talk to. But I'm just grateful that my mom was always on us. Though she was doing it as a point from a point of fear that
Right.
none of my
Well,
girls
it was like a church. You dare not get
you dare
pregnant.
not get pregnant at all. And I mean 6 girls. So she was trying to make sure we understand the gravity of having kids, especially at a young age.
Yeah. So
I think on my part, when I was much younger, they did not exactly have the conversation. They were just cues they were dropping. So when you're about to start your period, for instance, when you start growing breasts as well, they start dropping all those cues and they're like, you need to be careful. Your hormones can start acting a certain type of way. So don't act on those hormonal, changes and all of those things. So it was just cues for starters. And then the older we grew, it became them using actual words where they're like, okay, so don't do this because X, Y, and Z. So it was just that cues first and then proper education as we got older.
well, I think you got more than a lot more. A lot of people got, to be honest, because I know a lot of girls got the you have your period now. If a boy touches you,
You're going to get pregnant.
I mean, and that was it. That was the
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the sex education they got. And for the boys, it's like, if you get a girl pregnant, I'm going to disown you.
Yes.
And that's it. Like,
Like,
zero.
your
That's
life
where it
is ruined.
ends. Like,
You know, our parents go to the same school.
it feels that way sometimes. It does
Yeah.
feel that way because that was it for most people. I mean, parents who even went ahead to maybe much later as their kids grew up, have the proper conversation and educate them about these things. I feel like they went a step further than most African parents, if you think about it. A lot of African parents are, I don't know if it's fear or if they don't even know at all, right? Because when it comes to them preaching about not having sex before marriage, some of them had some of us before they got married, right? So
Yeah.
so it's ironical in a sense, like they're
I think
telling
it's
us,
fear.
yeah.
I think it is fear because I believe that when I've heard certain adults, the baby boomers, for instance, when they have these conversations, they are saying things like, "Oh, don't make the mistakes I made." A lot of them come from the angle of they don't want to say they regret the actions because they are grateful for the children that they have and they are proud of these children, but there's still that caveat that is somewhere in that tone. It's like, don't make the same mistakes I made. If I should have waited until I was much older and all of those things. So I think while it may seem as if to us it is just fear, I think from them it is also a warning, that they want every young person to have, where it's like, don't do the same thing that I did. I may look fine now, but things are not the way they seem. So know that before you make perhaps the same mistakes that I made. I think that's I believe the origin of it.
Okay, so let's talk about youth. Let's talk about how, like, addressing like sex, for example. When people are talking about it, if people are talking about it, the way they address sex for females is different from the way they address sex for males, right?
Yeah.
For example, if a guy is sleeping around, he's seen as a boss, right? He's like a bad guy. All the girls want him. And then if a girl is doing the exact same thing, sleeping around, it's like, she's loose. she's not worthy of respect. She's this and she's that, and they start calling her names, and it's different. It's totally different. And they give the excuse that men are biologically made to function.
They're
that way.
wired.
Wired, yes, that's the word. Exactly. They're biologically wired to be that way. They're allowed to be that way. So women are not allowed to express themselves sexually. It's like women are taught from when they're younger that, okay, sex is just for having children, right? And for your husband's satisfaction, you're supposed to satisfy your husband. Nobody talks about women's satisfaction in sex. As a matter of fact, if as a woman you come out to talk about wanting to get satisfied in sex, is seen as you're loose.
Yeah.
Yes, you're a loose woman, right? And on the other hand, as a man, it's seen as you're supposed to get experience in it. And the funny part is it's a double-edged sword, right? Because now let's create the link between this repression, like this case of repression, and rape culture, right? So for ladies, because they're not allowed to express themselves when they get sexually abused, they're afraid to come out to speak of it, because even when they do, people see it as you somehow invited it for yourself. Like, you're a lady, maybe your body looks a certain kind of way, and they blame it on you, or you dressed a certain kind of way, so definitely you were asking
You're in
for
some
it.
industry.
Yeah. or you were in a place you weren't supposed to be, so it's your fault. But then guys as well, right? When sexual abuse happens to guys and they speak about it, it's like people don't even believe them, right? They're like, you definitely enjoyed it. How can you say a woman raped you? It's not possible. But these things happen, right? And they can't even address the main issue, which is sexual abuse.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword, because like guys feel like a lot of guys were abused as kids by older ladies.
Yes.
And they can't talk about it, because even when they talk about it, their friends are going to, instead of their friends addressing the fact that they were abused, they're like hailing them like, hey, you went for an older girl, she has experience. And
it scars some of them for life.
It does.
It does.
And the funny thing is, they can't even talk about it with their friends.
But I think beyond even sexual abuse, and while you, with that very brilliant, explanation you just gave, it just made me think to myself, while it seems as though women are the ones who are at the receiving end more, who are the ones who are blamed for many of these things happening, it may stem from the fact that systemically, right, women are almost always at the receiving end of a lot of things. So if a girl, for instance, wants to achieve something career-wise, it's like, oh, you cannot do it, you're a girl, don't stress yourself. So it's almost like every step of the way, a woman is made to feel like not much good can happen
because
you're a woman, and that may be one of the reasons why some men will even, in fact, see their wives as just sex objects, and meant to just enjoy, and then that's it. So I think that in addressing the issue of sexual repression, and how it, of course, relates to rape culture, I feel like we need to make sure that women are, I'm careful with the word empowered, because it's been loosely used recently, but women need to be taught to be confident every step of the way, such that if a woman comes forward and says, oh, X person raped me, the first response should not be, what did you wear, or why were you there? It should be, there is a 99.9% chance that this lady was actually raped, and let us deal with that. We believe what she has said, and let's deal with that. Let us make sure that this doesn't happen next time. Let us make sure that we call out the abuser. So it comes from believing what she has said at all, and hearing her voice as a woman who's come forward to say, oh, I was raped by this person. And I think that will go a very long way. Just making a woman confident enough to come forward and say, okay, this thing happened to me, and believe me, I know there are issues of false rape accusations, and there's that kettle of fish, but we're dealing with the ones that are actually true now. Let her voice be heard, let her voice be believed, such that if anyone is experiencing such a thing, they will not feel shy or intimidated to come forward to say, oh, this thing happened to me. They will feel empowered to come forward and say, oh, this happened to me, and I'm sure that if I share with people, something will be done to stem this tide.
Okay. I feel like this conversation has been sort of one-sided, so let's hear from
True.
Al, who happens to be the only man among women today.
which is very intimidating.
Sorry about
Don't
that.
worry, don't
Okay,
worry.
I think
So,
what happens in the case of blackmail,
mhm,
you know, even when you are being lied against, oh, this guy raped me.
mm,
First of all, society does not even want to hear that maybe it's a lie or not. They are first going to attack, stab, kill, and finish the guy.
Are you sure of that?
Are you sure?
well,
God.
Because
maybe not with rape, maybe with other
We all
things.
witnessed the whole calling out of people during the lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just call anybody out for rape.
No,
And
but
So
but
there's
that was
that.
recent.
There's
That was
that.
recent.
There's the false rape
Recent.
accusation.
yeah, what happens in the case of false rape accusation? How would you know it's false? You know, first of all, you want to listen to the lady, and if her story is so sweet, you eat it.
Well,
Then you judge. Trust me, if the story is sweet, you as a woman, you judge the guy first
so
Sure.
yeah,
before the whole finding out and this. And even if there's no maybe camera evidence, or imagine there's no camera evidence, imagine it's just lady narrating, and the guy will definitely be denying. Nobody wants to actually really believe the guy, especially the one. They want to listen to the lady.
so what's going to happen is we'll have a different episode addressing false rape accusations,
Aha,
right?
that's a good
Because
one.
it's really broad and it's going to take us far away from the topic. What I wanted to ask you was, as a guy, do you have friends? Has any of your friends ever confided in you that maybe okay, at some point they got sexually abused, or they feel like someone sexually abused them? They didn't know what they were doing. They were too young to know what they were doing. Have they ever confided in that in you?
Yeah, the person I actually know was actually drunk, and the girl just took advantage of him. And trust me, even when he told me, I was like, bad guy.
See?
can you see what we are
Like,
talking?
definitely. What they have said, you don't enjoy it. So like, it does not really like, don't go now, nothing will happen. Like, just go and maybe take
So,
antibiotics
but
or something.
did you ever think that maybe emotionally he was affected by
Yeah.
the
Fine.
abuse?
Why do you think he will be fine? Do you think it's because he's a guy, that's why he'll be fine?
Exactly.
I don't know, I'm just being realistic.
If a girl came and told you that, how would you feel? Like, oh, I was drunk and a guy had his way with me. What would
I feel
you?
bad for the girl.
So why would you do bad for your friend?
Exactly.
Because a man's body count doesn't count.
You think?
No.
Like, it
That's
doesn't
the
count.
So
Like, I don't think a guy will be counting their body count.
So
Okay,
now,
no, they just maybe for bragging rights.
apart
You can
from
just count, but a lady would definitely want to
Who
feel
counts
like,
the
oh,
lady's body count?
the ladies now they count by
No,
themselves.
it's you guys.
Exactly.
She has slept with this.
no,
so
actually,
amount of people.
guys even do their body count. They count more. Like
No,
because they want bragging rights.
Yes.
Oh yes, I've slept with
Let me tell you the
Amaka
truth.
and Chinyere and this one.
let
and
me tell
that.
you how
It's like,
guys do it. We don't do it. We do it on a yearly basis. First, once it's January, how many you don't?
And
chop
it's
this year?
audit.
Wow.
Okay, now once on this year,
wow.
that 1st of January first, I first. You understand?
so-
We do on a yearly. Now, if a guy, my fellow guy, asks me, how far now? Which babe, someone since January, I never do. I don't say anything. Bro. I'm just, I don't know what's happened this 2021. You know, just you start from saying, but last year, then you know, oh, the whole of last year, during the lockdown, I did this, and it's all fun. Even when the guy was drunk, well, you don't enjoy. To me, I'm like, why it not be me, self? Don't.
Wow.
Would you
Yes,
do that?
I'm
So-
being serious.
So
Don't set
cycling
yourself
back
up.
now, like cycling back now.
Yeah.
If as let's say your son now, for example, you have a kid in the future, and he's maybe 10 years old, and an older woman comes to take advantage of him, and he comes to you and says, "Daddy, this woman touched me inappropriately." How are you going to address it? Are you going to be like, my son, you have grown now, you have entered, you are a man now?
No, it's 10 years old.
But some of your friends experience the same
At
thing.
that
They are
age.
not
At
10
that
years old,
age.
they are 18
No,
plus.
and even
At
at
that
that
age.
age,
At that
a
age.
lot of them hide it. A lot of them don't talk about
I
it.
think
because-
a lot of them they don't talk about it
Yeah.
because you hardly hear a guy saying when I was young I was like guy talk another thing.
But a
then
lot
I
of
think
men,
you
and
understand.
when women start to address issues of sexual abuse, men come out and say, well, men are sexually abused too.
So
But then we
they
tell
don't
them,
talk
okay, come
about
out and
it.
talk about your sexual abuse. And they're like, nah, I'm a
Yeah.
man, I'm a man.
So
I'm a man.
and that's why it's much harder
Exactly. It's much harder to address
to
male
address
also
sexual
male
I
sexual
think
abuse.
because they'll be seen as the weaker versus like they'll be seen as weak if they open up about
Please,
this
we will
kind
get
of
prizes
thing.
for suffering
They don't,
emotionally. There's no
Yeah.
prize for it. Or is there some funny association you guys have that gives you guys plaques at the end of the year?
like the
For
strongest man.
like, so this whole conversation around men are if they come out and say this they are weak, who does it help? Who
It
does
doesn't.
it benefit?
It
No
doesn't.
one.
And that's why I
But-
said, like, it's a
But
double-edged
trust me,
sword.
right now, if any of my friends comes like is grown up and was like, boy, I won't tell you, say, that time for 1999, then one auntie, really, I go just smile. Okay, nothing they wrong. But if a girl tells me that story, I'll feel you're so young.
Well, because the mentality surrounding male child abuse is that boys can take it, and it's
And-
not.
Oh, they can take it.
Boys,
They actually
so,
can.
and it's wrong.
Like,
because
wait,
wow.
take what? Sorry.
The abuse.
It's
Okay.
wrong because they're children,
Okay,
right?
they are
And
abused.
these are things that affect them. These are things that affect their mentality. It also affects their sex life, which
Yes,
is
when
It
they
does.
grow older.
Yeah.
it also
because-
affects their sex life. A lot of men, it would surprise you that if you actually got like a truth serum and you gave it to all your friends,
The things they
I
will
can
say.
tell you that 90% of them got abused as children.
Sure.
I can tell you that boldly. I don't know your friends. I've never met them before, but I can tell you that at least 90% of them would tell you that they got abused as children, but they don't get to talk about it. And the thing about childhood trauma is if you do not deal with childhood trauma,
It
it
lives
affects
with
the
you.
way
Yes.
you grow.
Yeah.
It affects
It does.
your relationship with other people. And most especially when it's sexual abuse, right? When it's sexual abuse, it affects your relationship with the opposite sex, right? And it's the same.
And even your identity.
Exactly.
It's a very personal.
Yes,
thing.
and it's something that doesn't get dealt with. And I feel like there's a relationship between that, which is not dealt with, and the way a lot of men treat a lot of women. Right?
And how
Because-
these things even continue sometimes. Because
Exactly.
you don't deal
It's
with
a
it.
cycle.
If you, for instance, feel like, oh well, your friend will be fine, Jerry, and then your son comes and maybe he watches this video. God forbid,
Yeah.
your son watches this video and it's like, God forbid that your son gets abused.
I'll take down the video.
and then he sees video and it's like, if I tell daddy will not believe me.
Or
And then
daddy
he
will be
keeps
like,
it-
you're fine.
Daddy will be like, you're fine. You know, so it becomes a cycle that doesn't end.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not fine. Just tell me.
That's
so,
what
so it becomes, I feel like it becomes more real when we picture it like ourselves, right? Because like if for example you hear a random girl got raped, right? Maybe you have like, even if it's 8% of your mind saying, what if she's falsely accusing this guy, right? There's still that doubt.
Sure.
But if your daughter comes to you and says someone sexually abused me, before you even hear the other person's side of the story, tell me you've not carried your gun. Tell me you've not carried your gun. So it becomes more real when it's personal, right? When it's something more distant, like you begin to think, there's another side to this story or something. But when it's more personal, when you're thinking about your own kid or your own sister or your own brother, it's like it's more personal now. You can think about it, you can actually visualize it, and you actually feel the emotions. You can empathize with it better.
And
Right?
speaking on empathy, it's great that you mentioned that because I was just literally thinking about it. We need to be taught to empathize
Yes.
because people have debated. Twitter is a very funny place.
Mhm.
People on Twitter will say stuff like, "Oh no, don't tell people that if it was their son or daughter or their sister that was involved, don't tell them that should be the reason why they should empathize with this person."
Yeah.
Just as a human being,
Yes.
you should feel bad that somebody can violate another human being like yourself, without their consent. So that should be the place that maybe your anger or your advocacy comes from, where it's like, okay, nobody should have to go through this. I don't care if it's my brother or my sister. I don't care if it is a family member, for instance. The fact that this person is a human being like me should anger me enough to say, no, we have to put a stop to this rape culture, thing. So I think we need to learn that a bit more, where you don't have to depend on somebody else's story before you believe something, but just kind of put yourself in their shoes and not a
And-
family member.
And cycling back to like the blame aspect when it comes to rape, for example, some people say, okay, for older girls, right, we might be the ones asking for it. When it comes to children, right, some people don't still draw the line. They still say, oh, this girl, like in the most
Yeah, most
recent case,
yeah,
right?
Princess and,
She was 13 years old, right? And you're saying she's asking for it. That's a minor. And how exactly is she asking for it? I've even read a post one time of a baby that was defiled by her own father. She was a baby, literally. I think she was
Sure.
about 9 months old. And a nurse, an actual nurse, what commented, she was like, some mothers dress their babies in a certain kind of way that is seductive, and some babies have seductive spirits.
How?
And chubby babies, when they wear tight clothes, and it drove me mad.
Seriously.
Oh,
drove
I'm
me
so mad right
really,
now.
Like,
it drove
So,
me
see?
really mad,
that's
right?
that's the very anger.
Because and that's why that's one thing I'm trying to talk about.
Wow.
Like, and be, when things like that happen, when you have pedophiles, and sometimes these people are people who don't even know better. Sometimes, not every time. Sometimes these people are people who don't know better. They've grown up with this idea that, well, sex is a bad thing, but I enjoy it, so I can do it whenever and wherever and with
with
whoever,
whoever.
right? As long as I'm having fun, that's what matters, right? And it's like, okay, when you cage a bird, everything outside would look
Attractive
exciting.
to it, yeah.
Everything, literally everything. The fly passing is, oh my god, wonderful fly, I want to go out. But
But
then,
do you agree that, sorry to cut you short,
yeah,
do you agree that, because you did say that people say older women sometimes call for it?
no,
Do you agree?
no, definitely not. Definitely not. Because, okay, what people don't understand, or what people are still struggling to navigate around, is consent, right?
Yeah.
Consent. The fact that someone dresses a certain way doesn't mean anything. It means the person is just wearing something different, right? It doesn't mean you have the right to harass the person, no matter what your belief system is, right? Because I won't see someone clothed everywhere and start saying stuff about the person. I don't
Right.
feel the need to. The person is just dressed differently than me. So why is it that if I dress a certain way, it means anybody else can harass me or anybody else can abuse me and it's my fault?
Mhm.
And that's one thing that a lot of abused victims battle with,
Yeah.
because they start blaming themselves.
Yes, maybe it was because of what I wore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did I go there?
Mhm.
Why did I trust this person?
Yeah.
If I had not gone there, this wouldn't have happened to me. Why did I, and most especially for kids. For kids, some kids don't even know they're getting abused while it's happening.
Yeah.
They're confused. This person they trust, it feels wrong, but they don't know what to do exactly. It feels wrong. Some of them don't even realize they were abused until they're older,
Yeah.
right? It feels wrong to them, but this is someone they trust. This is their uncle, the uncle that buys them sweets or
Sweets
biscuits. Or this is
See,
their
that's the
auntie,
trick.
the auntie that
To
carries
make
them
Wow.
on
sweet.
her lap
And just
and
likes
takes
to
him out.
take
and,
them out.
Yeah, bought him the toy gun he wanted. And
Ice cream.
when his mother said no, yeah,
Auntie was the one
auntie was the one that bought
And-
it for him. Right? And so they it feels wrong to them, but what can they do? Right? So it's when I said it's a double-edged sword, it's not benefiting guys, and we need to talk about it more, right? We're addressing the female sexual abuse and all that, but at the same time, we need to also address male sexual abuse because it's something that has been repressed, and if we don't heal together as a society, the battle is endless. We're just like
Actually,
going in
round
circles, right? We're just going in circles. If we're teaching women, oh, learn to protect yourselves, why are we not teaching men, oh, this is not okay, right? This is not okay. And
Do
if
you get? Do you sometimes feel like there is enough education for guys?
Love education.
enough in education, sexual education?
No, there's no guys. Guys tend to know more already. So maybe because they tend to explore,
But
but
do
they
you,
have that
Wait.
freedom of exploring. Like,
Where did
but do you think they really know more?
they don't really, they just want to
Because
have fun.
a lot of guys, their idea of sex is informed by porn, which is literally exaggerated acting.
A lot.
But
Wow, a lot.
yes, exactly.
I
So,
agree. I agree to
so
that.
do you
That's a
count
lot.
that as knowledge?
Yeah.
Because technically, that's not knowledge. These are paid actors, and they're paid
And that's
to
the thing. Some
exaggerate
people
it.
actually feel like that is sex education.
Exactly, right? They're paid to they're literally paid to exaggerate it. They take drugs, they take steroids, and they're paid to that is literally what they're paid to do, right? And then boys watch it and feel like they're informed. Do you think that's sex education?
It's not sex education. I feel pornography would only, like we say among ourselves, we learn styles from there. We just want to emulate
Thanks for
and
being
try to
honest.
do things that the other person might not even be comfortable with. Then you now find out that why you know if you jump? Maybe they did jump for you. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Like you can't even be bothered.
We don't know.
Exactly. We don't.
I'm
know.
sure they know. So what I feel is that sex education, the little that I know, was one they taught us in biology,
Mm,
the reproduction aspect.
mm.
Apart from that one, I've not seen any sex education
So-
program for guys.
Mm.
There was a time they would do sex education program for girls. Always, they will lock all the boys. They'll lock us, or they'll say, we are going to play on the field. And we're always glad. They'll leave the girls. Then they separate the girls, and they will not share always for all of them. And teach them sex education that we should also know. They will not teach us. They feel like,
I
so
guess
it's not really our fault.
of pregnancy, because of girls can get
Yes.
pregnant.
Who is
So
getting
the
them
fear-
pregnant?
Actually,
Actually,
they
so-
don't impregnate themselves.
Yeah.
But the funny part is, even those times that they separate girls and start giving them sex education in quote, most times they're just talking about giving birth. They're teaching
And your
you about your
periods.
periods. That is to them sex education, and that's where it ends, right? It's like, oh, okay, so you expect these changes in your body, and you need to know to watch your cycle and know your free period.
Something. There was, but at this age when guys experience this, I'm so shy to say wet dreams.
I know we're taught
No,
that.
I mean,
we're taught
yeah.
that, actually. So
Mhm.
So I told my mom,
Mm.
and she was like, the first thing she did was to question what I've been doing with my friends. Like, have you guys been watching pornography? Have you been doing this? I said no. She said, it happens. I'm already growing up. I have to be careful. She said, and a lot of my friends, if I tell them in school, we say it among ourselves shamefully. It's like one of the biggest shame. We can't even tell anybody. I didn't mean there was like a program to let us know that this thing now, now
this is going
a
to happen.
machine gun that can shoot down the egg in the ovaries. Like you can shoot down eggs in the ovaries. Like you are lethal. They need to let you know that you are lethal right now, and you can produce babies. We needed to know, but then it was like a shame to happen. You wake up before everybody. You watch this thing, go and hang it. It was the same as bed waiting. It was a big shame. I remember, and nobody must know.
On
Nobody
both sides,
must
we have an unhealthy culture when it comes to sex education. The fathers usually are supposed to be the ones who take responsibility for educating their sons about sex, and most times all the fathers do. Even when you watch Hollywood movies, it's like, yo, this is a condom, you're a man now, and
It's
you're
so
going to get the
exaggerated.
girls. It's like, it's exaggerated.
Prom
Yeah,
night.
it's exaggerated, and there's no actual education.
Mhm.
It's just about, oh yes, you're the boss now, you're a man now. And okay, so but what does it mean to be a man though?
Exactly.
What does it mean?
They
They don't
gloss
teach
over it.
exactly. They don't teach responsibility. They don't teach consent.
Mhm.
There are a lot of other things they don't teach. They don't even teach hygiene, because sexual hygiene is very important. A lot of people emphasize on sexual hygiene for females, but they never
don't
talk about sexual hygiene for men, which is super important as well. While women are more prone to infections and such, men are prone as well. I mean, if you even mention going for a prostate exam for men is like,
Like-
wow. What do you
mean?
mean? What
I'm a strong
a
African man.
doctor we thought no, God forbid, right? But when it comes to women, it's like, yeah, go get yourself checked. Oh, take care of yourself. What's that? Why are you dirty? And you hear a lot of men saying, that girl, she's dirty, and this thing was smelling. And these are guys that sometimes wear the same boxers for weeks.
Ouch, you went there.
And nobody's true. It's true because nobody teaches them about that. It's not something they talk about. They don't have anybody to tell them that's wrong.
Mhm.
They should take care of themselves more. They see hygiene as something that is female
Someone will
responsibility.
now teach them.
Exactly.
Women
Exactly.
are overeducated, if there's anything like that. Women
No.
are so over.
No.
The enlightenment is a lot.
We're
for women.
still lacking
I think
if
we're
you think
still
about
lacking.
it.
But compared to men,
Yeah,
No, compared
compared to
Definitely.
men, we even have information for them.
Definitely. Exactly. We do. We do. Like men, to them, they feel like, I mean, repeating boxer is no problem. But we can't do that.
You
We
are ready
can't
to
do
die
that.
on this hill of
No, but
repeating
no,
boxer.
but for real. Can you repeat without washing? Can you?
No.
No, but for them it's nothing. It's like, yeah, I'm a G, I'm cool. Like it's only once I wore it. Or it's only twice I wore it. Or they've even
That is
forgotten how many times they wore it. They just pick it from the
Tao is
bin.
incredibly quiet.
Who are
It's
you,
like-
I'm
guys?
sure my audience are incredibly quiet.
So like sexual repression in general is a whole lot because it cuts across like teaching about sexual hygiene,
Yes.
teaching about sex itself, the act, teaching about reproduction, teaching about different things. Even contraception comes into it. It's a really broad topic. We are not taught about contraception. It's seen as evil, sort of, you know.
Masturbation.
Yes. And then
Masturbation.
we're not taught about contraception, but we're not expected to abort.
True.
Which is another topic we will discuss on an entirely different
Different
episode. And this is our version of events. So we want to hear what you guys think. Do you think we Nigerians are very sexually repressed? Do you think it's somewhat related to rape culture? And just let us know what you think in the comments. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
You know what I want to say. Please just do it. It's right below the video. Subscribe, notification button. God bless you.
Like and share.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So see you on the next episode of But What Do We Know? Bye.
Bye.